This is an open letter to Uncle Sam. Love you, man. There is this idea of superheroes that's under the management of your great managers, Uncle Sam. Hollywood, under the great leadership of your managers, Hollywood is perpetuating the idea of superheroes. It's been a couple of decades now. And that's poison for the society. The idea of superheroes is poison for society. And as always, Hollywood seems to be perpetuating the wrong ideas, promoting the poison. Here's the problem with the superheroes. I mean, let's put it this way. They're not wrong ideas to perpetuate for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 12-year-olds, as it was always in comic books. Now different cultures have their own comic books, those folklore tales, the traditional tales that every culture has between the fight and between the good and the evil, and character buildings in their mythology of good and evil, and these characters are good, and they've all had them. All cultures across the whole fucking planet. But the reality is that people would, grow out of those ideas by the time they step into the society. They want to step into the society, or way before then. By the time people are 12 in traditional cultures, by the time they're 12, they realize that, okay, there is no, absolute good and absolute evil. There is always in grays. People are living on gray areas. There is little darker shades of gray and the lighter shades of gray. But what Hollywood is doing is that they have packaged these comic book ideas of right and wrong, good and evil, and righteous man being the judge, the jury, and the executioner on the spot. This idea is basically being pushed to adults living in a society full of guns. Many of these societies are full of guns, or even in case of the fucking British, they don't have guns, but knife attacks have gone through the roof because of this idea that a person can determine what is wrong and what is bad. He can determine what should be the punishment, and he can on the spot execute the punishment himself. That's poison for a society. That's poison for civilization. It's poison for civilization, period. No civil society can survive such a mentality, such an attack on civil structure. I mean, even when dealing with the enemies, supposed enemies of such societies, again, the routine must be followed. The jury determines whether there is a guilt here. The judge determines the punishment, and then there is an executioner that carries through. But the more we move forward and the more of these people who have grown up on Hollywood's poison of superheroes, the more we are going towards that, yes, Bin Laden, yeah, we killed him. We didn't need to go to the judge and the jury. We didn't need to hear what the fuck this motherfucker has to say. We killed him and we threw him in the ocean. Really. I'm sorry. The first problem with this is that if he goes to the courtroom, the public can hear his accomplices, can hear he may have had accomplices. I'm sure he has had accomplices from maybe even some governments. Maybe he was ordered to do by people above him. Maybe he was just a middleman. Who knows? There is no reason for anybody to be executed without a trial. Period. Whether be it a drone strike or a SEAL Team 6 strike. Or, Billy Bob taking a gun to fucking an Indian Sikh gas station in Tucson and blowing the motherfucker's brains out because he looked like a certain group of people. He looked suspicious because he looked different. Folks, this poison that Hollywood is distributing, the poison of superheroes, and you see it over and over being repeated. Who are these superheroes? These are a bunch of the common man. I mean, they go out of their way to show their common side, as from Superman, who with a suit and a tie and the glasses, he looks like any average, employee of any organization, private or public. To the Spider-Man, who is a school kid and a high school kid, average high school kid who gets pushed around when he doesn't have his superhero powers, to almost all of them. To Batman, who's a rich guy who, for the fact that he's rich, he's righteous, he's right. He has the right to go and, find the bad elements, judge them, come up with a punishment for them, and execute the punishment on the spot with himself, by himself, just with a little help from his gay friend Robin. Are you serious? I mean, these ideas are fine when you're 12. These, read about them in comics books or watch them in cartoons. But pushing these ideas for the common man, pushing these ideas in the mind of a common man by repeating them in these superhero movies, and then wondering why the crime rate is going up, why everybody is so righteous that all these conflicts happen, that basically even a country gets attacked without a jury, without a judge, without a jury. The country of Iraq, country of Afghanistan got executed. Libya got executed just because a few people at the top decided to do it, period. The judge, the jury, and executioner. There is actually even a story that in going to war with Iraq, actually the administration didn't count on the CIA. They just went and occupied a couple of rooms in the CIA headquarters, and just the cronies of the administration piled up in that room and try to put some circumstantial evidence together and come up with a half-ass argument for attacking Iraq or Afghanistan for that matter, or Grenada or Panama for that matter, or Vietnam, or Indonesia for that matter, or Venezuela for that matter. It's sort of like this accepted idea that a few people, without actually involving the majority, involving the courts, not even involving the institutions who have information about the matter, not even involving the representatives of the people, just the Caesar decides that the Caesar wants to go to war. Fuck. What part of what part of this democracy? What part of it is procedure? What part of it is what part of it is right? What part of it is civil? Civil society doesn't work with superheroes running around. Civil society runs based on procedure, court, jury, judge, and a different executioner. If you roll all these into one and then give the job to a common man, you roll all of them into one, the judge, the jury, and the executioner, and give it to a common man. Whether this common man is Spider-Man, a high school kid with a chip on his shoulder who's been pushed around for a long time by bullies, or whether that common man is a guy sitting in some air-conditioned container in Nevada operating at, a lethal drone strike over some shithole in the Middle East. The judge, the jury, and the executioner all in one person. Or a very select group of people who usually nobody knows who they are. Very few people know who they are. Then no civil society, no civil planet. I mean, and the idea is we are trying to promote civility by drone strikes. I'm sorry, you're promoting terror by drone strikes. You're terrorizing people of Somalia when, they're sleeping or they're walking during the day and they just hear boom from somewhere around town, and later on they hear, oh, there was a drone strike. They just, blew up a house. There were the bad guys in there. Well, who determined they were bad guys? Which civil institution followed which procedure to determine if they're bad guys, and bad guys on in whose eyes? I mean, were they bad guys for their neighbors? Were they bad guys for their family? Or were they bad guys in the eyes of their children? Were they bad guys in the eyes of their uncles and aunts? Were they bad guys in the eyes of their neighbors? Were they bad guys in the eyes of their own government? No. They were bad guys in our perspective. Not even in our perspective. They were bad guys in the perspective of two people at the top, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President agreed that that guy is a bad guy, and he went up in smoke. Oh, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President and the Chief of Staff decided that that guy should be smoked. Ooh, wow. Judge, jury, and executioner? And the president and the vice president are usually just, apparently, it's okay for them not to be intellectuals. They're all common men. Trump was a common man, Bush was a common man, Reagan was a common man. For many decades now, apparently any common man can become president of, man president of Uncle Sam's land. Any common man. Average George becomes president, average Reagan becomes president, just average people. An actor and a baseball manager and, a cocksucker, and anybody can become president, senator. There is no intellectual minimum. You don't have to be a university professor, you don't have to be an intellectual, you don't have to have, some intellectual weight. Anybody can become the leader. Anybody can become the leader, and then we give the power of the judge, the jury, and executioner to this common man who yesterday was, a manager of some bullshit third grade baseball team, and today he has the power of the judge, the jury, and the executioner. He can smoke individuals, and he can, plow through countries. Because the superhero has been promoted, the idea of superhero, the idea of that any common man can be, you can't get any more common than Spider-Man. You can't be any more common than, what Superman is trying to be. It's like passing as a reporter in some fucking newspaper in his day job. And all of these superheroes, in one hand, they're being portrayed as any common man, and on the other hand, they're being given the power of the judge, the jury, and the executioner, just because they have certain, usually physical attributes. So if you pump enough iron and you get a lot of muscle, then you're righteous, then you become right, and you can become, this idea that they're promoting is sort of like, this guy got bitten by a spider, and the other guy was, just has a lot of, physical powers of flying and jumping, and the other guy's just got a lot of money, he can invent a lot of, like the fucking the Iron Man. Rich guy who invents a lot of technology, then can do a lot of, sophisticated things with his technologies. But they put that because he has the power of technology that somehow makes him righteous. And he has the right to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner, just because he has the power. He has the technology. Well, that's dangerous. You're not promoting civility by promoting these superhero characters. The superhero characters are exactly the opposite of civility. Exactly the opposite. Because the idea is sort of like, either they decide with their puny minds that who's the bad guy, or in conversation, or they're told who's the bad guy, and they just have to go and execute the motherfucker. Either case, it doesn't matter. It's just the whole idea that one person or a very small group of people, based on behind closed doors, one person or a very small group of people behind closed doors can determine who's the bad guy and smoke him, or can determine which country is the bad country and plow through them. It just goes against every aspect of civility. And you're not promoting civility by promoting superhero mentality. The one-man army, one-man, Judge Dredd kind of situation. It's sort of like, I see it, I judge it, I determine it's guilty, and I judge it, determine what should be the punishment, and I carry out the punishment. Fuck! What kind of civilization are you planning on holding on to if once, these simple-minded men fall for such bullshit, which they have? I mean, buying the fact that, it's a good thing that Epstein died in prison. No, it's not. I mean, they didn't kill Jeffrey Epstein. They killed justice when they killed Jeffrey Epstein. They killed justice because people needed to hear who his accomplices were, who his clients were, who his victims were, who was giving him orders, who gave him a leg up in the Wall Street, who pushed him through, who put him in contact with these rich, powerful people. People needed to hear that, but apparently we're not supposed to hear that. Well, you're not promoting civil society if I guess the guy who killed Epstein considered themselves as superheroes as well. The judge, the jury, and the executioner. Just like, the guy who killed Bin Laden also apparently was a superhero. Fuck, man. Investigation is more important than punishment. Because through investigation, you find all the guilty parties. Not through punishment. If you punish the motherfucker on the spot, how the fuck you're going to find his accomplices? All the people involved. Or is the objective is that you don't want to find all the people involved? The reality is you don't want to find the guilty parties. So once one guilty party is found, he's executed on the spot, so he cannot talk, so nobody can realize exactly, the network. Nobody can find out the network of the guilty parties. Yeah. Unfortunate. By killing Bin Laden, people should have been outraged, not celebrating. The people should have been smart. People should have been outraged when they heard that Bin Laden was quietly executed without investigation, without a judge, without a jury, without trial, without investigation, without people actually hearing the motherfucker in the courtroom and hear him speak and tell people who his accomplices were, who facilitated. This wasn't a one-man show. Such a sophisticated operation cannot have been a one-man show, or a two-man show, or a three-man show. Just like Jeffrey Epstein cannot have been a one-man show. When the police department couple of times, are forced to hand out some kind of watered-down punishment to Jeffrey Epstein, there were that it wasn't a one-man show because, the FBI says and the police says that we received a call from up there. They told us to take it easy on Mr. Epstein. Who's up there? What's up there? There is the great crimes are not carried out by one man, two man, 5 man, 10 man. Great crimes are a network. And by executing, by judging the jury, by having the judge and jury and the executioner either being one man or a small group of men without public hearings, that's just, that's the slaughter of justice, not the carrying out of justice. And Hollywood is not helping this, pushing this narrative of superhero, and every common man can be a superhero, and every common man can determine who's the bad guy and who's the good guy, and every common man can dole out the punishment that he sees fit for other people, and every common man can go and execute his punishment. Is just promoting anarchy. It's just promoting anarchy. And the problem is, as I said, when you promote this narrative to a 10-year-old, it may be okay, but promoting it to a 20-year-old, to a 30-year-old, to a 40-year-old through these action movies, superhero action movies, that's, you're just, you're not promoting civility. On top of that, you are misleading in the common man into thinking that yes, things are either black or white. There's no gray area, black or white. We are always right and white. The other side is always wrong and black, I guess. You're not, again, nothing good can come out of it. If you keep promoting to your population, to the people of your country, your world, your planet, that there is no gray area, everybody is either black or white. The great doofus who came out and says, you're either with us or against us. It's like, we are right and they're wrong. The promotion of the idea that there is no grayscale is anti-civil. It's not, it's against civilization. Against everything that is civilized. Civility means grayscale. Civility means, okay, punishment based on the degree of crime, and on top of that, more important than punishment is the investigation to find out all the branches that help such crime taking place, and transparency of the investigation, so the public can know exactly what is the cause and what has been the effect, and who has been the cause and who has been the effect. Mr. Clinton, an ex-president, is walking around, and everywhere he goes he's applauded, while everybody knows that, at least this much everybody knows, that he's been, there are pictures of him with with Mr. Epstein's young professionals. Let's put it this way. There doesn't need to be an investigation into that. Circumstantial evidence. Are you folks serious? What? So people of great power become saints after they achieve that great stature. They suddenly become saints, and they no longer can be held accountable. They never can be held accountable. So, what does that cover? Also the senators as well? Does this sainthood also cover the House of Representatives as well? Does this sainthood covers the governors as well? Does this sainthood covers the, the state legislature as well? How far down the scale does this sainthood go? That once such a stature, such an office has been achieved, has been reached by individuals, those individuals suddenly become canonized and they become saints. And nobody can ever question them or judge them or, investigate them. Well, then you don't have a civil society. On one hand, you're promoting the common man can be a superhero and can be the judge and the jury and the executioner and, deal with other common men like himself on the spot. But on the other hand, there are certain saints that nobody can judge, nobody can jury, and nobody can carry out any kind of judgment against them. Saints and shit. You common folks go and, judge and jury and execute each other as much as you like, and here are some guns to facilitate your judgments. But there are certain people who are saints, nobody can judge, nobody can jury, and nobody can carry out any kind of judgment against them. I'm sorry, you haven't reached democracy and you haven't reached civility. You're just repackaged feudalism. You have repackaged feudalism. You have repackaged the idea that there are lords and then there are commoners. And the lords are untouchable and the commoners are untouchable as well, but in a different sense, in the Indian sense. And here are some guns. Every one of you motherfuckers are a superhero. Go ahead and carry out whatever you see fit with each other. Wow. Yeah. Love you, Uncle Sam, but your managers are pushing some crazy ideas.